During my SI training, I worked for the NHS in England as a community paediatric physiotherapist. So what I was doing then is extremely different to what I'm actually doing now. And I think the reason that I've gone into doing what I do now is primarily because I did the modular pathway and learned about SI, and that massively changed my practice to the point really that I felt that it was almost impossible for me to carry on working in the NHS, because I was, I suddenly found I had all these other tools in my toolbox that I wasn't really being allowed to use because it wasn't in the remit of a physio to do that. So I ended up, and actually it was during the course of my modular pathway that I actually really got an interest in the trauma side of things and attachment, and that's where I kind of naturally gravitated to go to. And I do think that's really important, because had I have not done that training, had I have not learned the SI piece, I wouldn't be in the area of work that I'm in now, which I absolutely love doing. So massively different with what I'm doing. And I think that's really important, because I do get asked a lot by physiotherapists who are really interested in SI but aren't sure if there's a role for them, and especially those that are interested in trauma. And I think there's a massive role, because there's so many similarities between OTs and physios anyway. We look at so many of the same things, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what we do and what we don't do, whereas actually really truthfully we are looking at how the body functions in the world. That's what we're looking at. So there's a lot of similarities. The way that I used to work was very sort of looking at end goals, and also not really fully understanding why people were doing things they were doing or having the difficulties that they had. So for example, looking at balance, for example, which is something physios look at a lot. We might look at someone who really struggles to balance, and the thing that we did was practice balance and wondering why people find that so hard. Whereas now I'm really looking at in terms of, well, what's wrong? What's going on? Have they got poor proprioceptive awareness? Are they struggling with their postural security? What is actually happening underneath that problem with balance? And can we address that? So we're looking at those distal goals, but bringing it back very proximally. So looking at what the problem is, making a hypothesis about what's causing that problem, and then addressing that from a sort of more holistic sensory perspective. I had a really wonderful example of this with a client that I'd worked with who had experienced a lot of trauma and really had poor body awareness as a consequence of that. And we were using some whole body vibration to really sort of impact that body awareness, using the knowledge that we gained through the SI training. We'd been using this vibration, and then I asked the child whether they could stand on one leg, and her mum just burst out laughing and said to me, she's had 18 months of physio and she still can't stand on one leg. And my brain's thinking, oh crikey, what were they doing? Were they literally just practicing her standing on one leg, which she can't do and she's fearful of? And after the input that we'd given her, that sensory input, she could stand on one leg, and she was so proud of herself. Mm-hmm. And mum was just like, oh my word, what's happened here? But that was just a really lovely example of actually that knowledge that you get through learning the sensory systems, and how that then impacts on things that we do or can't do, can really change how you then practice and how you see things.